Okay, let's get into this. If you picture ancient Egypt's treasures, for, well, over 100 years, basically one place in Cairo was the place. It held almost everything.
Mm-hmm. That's right. The Egyptian Museum, the one right there in Tahrir Square. It first opened its doors way back in 1902.
Wow, 1902.
Yeah, and what's really notable about it is that the building itself was conceived, designed from the ground up to be a museum,
Ah, okay.
which was quite rare back then. One of the first purpose-built museums anywhere, really.
Mm-hmm.
And it just grew and grew, ended up housing well over 160,000 artifacts.
160,000. That's a lot.
It's an incredible amount. Filled the halls, spilled over into like massive storage areas.
And I guess that sheer number must have caused some issues, right? Having that much stuff.
Yeah.
Sounds like it must have been incredibly crowded.
Oh, definitely. It was packed. Almost felt more like a vast warehouse sometimes than what we'd maybe expect from a museum display today. It kind of reflected how things were done back then, that collecting impulse.
Right, a different era's approach.
Exactly. And the building itself, while, grand and historic, it started facing challenges. Being right in the city center meant pollution, vibrations, noise, all the things that aren't great for ancient artifacts.
Makes sense.
And, the idea of a central place for Egyptian antiquities, it actually goes back even further.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, to Muhammad Ali Pasha back in the 1830s. He sort of started the ball rolling. But the collection itself, it bounced around a bit before Tahrir.
Where did it go?
Well, it started in Esbakia, then moved to the Citadel.
Oh.
After that, it was in Bulak, near the Nile.
Okay.
But Bulak had a major problem in 1878, a huge Nile flood damaged things.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that prompted another move, temporarily, to the Giza Palace.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, the Tahrir building was constructed.
Quite a journey even before 1902 then.
Definitely.
And the building itself, the Tahrir one, I understand the architect, Marcel Dournian, he was French.
Yes, that's right. And visually, you can see some classical influences on the outside, Greek-style elements. But inside, the design actually tried to evoke the feeling of ancient Egyptian temples. There are nods to, like, the hypostyle halls you see in places like Edfu. Pretty ambitious.
Interesting. And the layout inside, how was it organized?
It followed a fairly traditional museum plan.
Yeah.
The ground floor basically takes you chronologically through Egyptian history, dynasties, periods, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Then the first floor was arranged more thematically, so you can see like complete collections together, everything found in one particular tomb, for example.
Ah, okay. Makes sense.
And then there's this huge basement, just vast storage for, tens of thousands of other objects that weren't on display.
Incredible.
And outside, in the garden, there's also a memorial.
Yeah.
It honors many of the famous Egyptologists, the people who, dedicated their lives to uncovering all this history.
And this Tahrir Museum, this is where the big names were, right? Like Tutankhamun.
Oh, absolutely. For decades, Tutankhamun's treasures, those amazing gold masks and chariots and everything, that was the star attraction right there in Tahrir.
Yeah.
And other really significant finds, too, like the funerary goods of Yuya and Thuya.
Tutankhamun's great-grandparents.
Exactly. And items from a hair priest tomb, too. They were all housed there, sometimes even displayed in ways that tried to recreate, how they looked in the tomb originally.
So you've got this incredible collection, this historic building, but it sounds like the pressure was mounting.
Yeah, it really was. You have the sheer number of artifacts, first off. Then you have the age of the building itself, the environmental issues we mentioned.
Right.
Plus, archaeologists kept finding new things. Egypt's history wasn't finished being discovered. So the need for just more space, for better conservation facilities, proper climate control, modern security, it just became really obvious.
And were there other issues, like security?
Unfortunately, yes. Over its very long history, the museum did face challenges, including instances of damage and, sadly, some theft as well. It highlighted the need for, well, a 21st century approach.
Okay, so that really sets the stage for the need for something new.
Precisely. And that something new became this massive, ambitious project, the Grand Egyptian Museum, the GM.
The GM, and built in a totally different spot, right? Out near Giza.
Exactly. A
Yep.
huge shift. Moved away from the crowded city center to a location right next to the pyramids themselves.
And the scale of this new museum.
It's enormous. The site is about 117 acres, huge. And the investment was significant, around $750 million US dollars, partly from international loans. It was a major national undertaking.
Wow.
The whole idea was to create one of the absolute largest, most modern museums globally. designed from the start for, long-term preservation of this heritage, but also to be a massive draw for
But
visitors.
for you, as someone looking at this, it's a real contrast. You've got the old, historic, maybe slightly chaotic museum downtown
Hmm.
versus this gigantic state-of-the-art complex out by the pyramids. Two completely different philosophies almost.
Absolutely. They represent different moments in time,
Mm.
different approaches to museology, and a huge draw for the GM. Its main focus is going to be the entire Tutankhamun collection.
All of it together.
Yeah, nearly 5,000 artifacts from his tomb, displayed together for the first time ever.
Hmm.
That's going to be, well, unparalleled.
That sounds incredible.
And the way the GM is planned to be run is different, too. The idea is for it to be more independent, like an economic entity with its own board of trustees.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, potentially bringing in international expertise for management, maybe attracting private investment, a shift from the purely governmental model of the old museum.
And thinking about visitors, people who might be planning a trip, what actually makes them want to go to a place like the GM even before they get there? What does the research say?
Well, studies looking into that, into what shapes people's image before visiting, suggest a few key things.
Hmm.
Big factors are the chance to learn something new, to really gain knowledge,
Okay, education.
right? But also the idea of having fun, being entertained,
Mhm.
and importantly, the perceived quality of the place, the facilities, the displays.
That makes sense. People
Yeah,
want a good experience.
exactly. Interestingly, some research found that the actual location, being near the pyramids or how easy it was to get to, wasn't always the top factor driving that initial interest. It was more about what they expected to do and see inside.
Fascinating. So, looking ahead, it's not just about the Tahrir Museum or the GEM anymore. It's becoming more spread out.
That seems to be the plan, yes.
Mm.
A kind of network of major institutions. So the GM will be the big one,
Mhm.
housing Tutankhamun and the vast majority of the main collections.
Okay.
Then you have the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, the NMEC. That's already open, and it's where things like the royal mummies are now displayed. It focuses more on the sweep of civilization.
Right. I remember the mummy parade.
Exactly. And then the original Egyptian Museum in Tahrir Square, the plan is for it to stay open.
Oh, it is.
Yes, but it'll undergo renovation, and its collection will be much smaller, more focused, maybe around 5,000 key objects, concentrating specifically on the history of Egyptian art.
So, a real evolution from everything crammed into one historic building to this distributed system, each place with its own specialty.
It really is a huge shift in how Egypt presents its past.
It makes you wonder.
Well, yeah. As these incredible artifacts are moved, conserved, and displayed in these new ways, in these very different settings,
Hmm.
what does that do to the stories they tell? How does seeing them in a modern museum near the pyramids, maybe next to objects they weren't near before, how does that shape our understanding? Not just of ancient history, but maybe its connection to Egypt today?